Welcome to MISANO for the fourth round of the GT4 European Series. The championship started at Monza in April, went to Brands Hatch in May, start of June, Paul Ricard, and now a totally different circuit, MISANO. Look at the track, it's tight, it's twisty, another really different challenge for the drivers, and yet again a packed field, 35 runners. GT4 just goes from strength to strength. Good to see new Aston Martin Vantages this year. That street art racing, long-time protagonist with Aston Martin. All sorts of shapes. McLaren's going better and better in the championship. We have two 20-minute qualifying sessions. Driver 1 does the first session, driver 2 does the second. Just 10 minutes in between. The track is going to get crowded. There will be traffic with as many cars as we have. 35, first lap complete, the flying lap, and it's a McLaren leading the way around. It's going to be very, very tight at the top. Very hot here. Last time I checked the air temperature, it was 39 degrees, and that was about an hour ago. It's only going up, and the race this afternoon, 4:20, it's bound to be absolutely baking. It's been a very good season for Benjamin Lecen, sharing with Daniel Mackay in that GT4 McLaren, the 570S model. Victory in the first race at Monza, victory in the second. And as a consequence of this sort of performance, they are right at the sharp end of the championship, leading the way on 91 points. The next closest challenger, Lippert Motorsport, the Mercedes of Jan Kisiel and Max Cobalt. But right now, first out of the pits, and looks like he's going to be the first to set not only a flying lap, but probably the fastest flying lap of anybody. So really good start by GT4, on their toes this season. So waiting for that first lap to be completed. The MISANO circuit, 16 turns. Well, it's 15 and a little kink halfway down the straight that runs in the opposite direction to the pit lane. Between turns 6 and 8. You'd have to really be able to take a little protractor there to work out that it does kink about 5 degrees to the left as it goes under a gantry over the circuit. The drivers, though, it's an absolutely flat-out blast. So Benjamin Lecen, let's see what he can do when he comes around to complete his lap. He's actually almost caught up with one of the V8 Racing, or the V8 Racing Chevrolet Camaro, the GT4R model. That's driven at the moment by Dutch racer Francesco Pastorelli, and then be handed over for the second qualifying session to his teammate, the ultra-experienced and always competitive Duncan Houseman. So out of the 16th, the final corner over the curves, maybe just about enough still on the track. Looks so that the marker's going to be set down by Benjamin Lecen, waiting for Max Cobalt was ahead of him on the track, and but the difference between them in times is 2 seconds, and now it's all changing at the top, but still sitting a second clear of the best of the rest is Benjamin Lecen. Good chance to take a look at Francesco Pastorelli. Duncan Houseman's had a load of teammates so far this year. V8 Racing, I just love that metallic blue race livery, and it makes a wonderful rumble. Good lap just been put in by car 61, which is the Tom Wood car, but it's driven at the moment by Mika Stanley, Academy Motorsport Aston Martin. But Jan Reinig, now it's under a 1/10 of a second between Benjamin Lecen and the treble 7, which the Schrader Motorsport Mercedes. So very, very tight after just one flying lap. For Francesco Pastorelli, he was one of the last cars out of the pits, and so he's yet to complete a flying lap. 1 minute 44.5 seconds is the marker at the moment. Pastorelli just getting up to speed, getting to learn this car. Father of Nicky Pastorelli, Dutch racing family of Italian extraction. New name at the top of the charts. It was a McLaren with Benjamin Lecen. It's now Ewan Mackay in the number 8 BMW. That's entered by Chris Motorsport, sharing that with Ricardo van der Ende. Ewan's obviously swapped over with Ricardo to be driver number 1. My entry list has him as driver number 2. But it's only the first driver in each of these entries that is doing session number 1. The second driver will wait to session number 2. So 20 minutes, we've already got almost 6 minutes of that has expired. It's Ewan Mackay, 1 minute 44.0 to 90, just over half a second clear of Benjamin Lecen. Benjamin going better on his next lap. Closes the gap very slightly, takes a 10th off, so that's a really good first flyer from Ewan Mackay. Riding on board with Jan Reinig in that treble 7, Schrader Motorsports Pro-Am class Mercedes. And just looking to see who is actually top in the Pro-Am rankings at the moment. In fact, we've got an AM runner, Dominic Olbert, up in 4th overall, so that's really impressive. Dominic in the More Than Racing KTM Crossbow. And the top runner in the Pro-Am class, 8th position overall. It's car number 31. It's Cellazlar Racing Team, Alessandro Giovanelli. And Jan Reinig, who we were driving with further down the order in 19th place. Turkish team, Borusan Automotive, Sembol Bolokbazi. One of many drivers to have shared this season with Ibrahim Okyay, who's the main driver. He's cycled through a number of Turkish teammates, but it's great to see that livery. Always stands out, that bright blue. Pushing on hard, the front just trying to get a bit of turn into the corner, not quite there. But again, this combination of MISANO with tight turns, a few sweepers, but you don't have your front end turning, you're really going to struggle around here. Particularly, of course, for all these drivers, the track temperatures are soaring. The air temperature is like you just opened the oven door. Very, very hot indeed. Ewan Mackay no longer at the top of the charts. Sembol Bolokbazi is 7th overall, doing very well indeed. And suddenly Mad Siljahaug to the top of the charts. Car number 24, another KTM Crossbow. True Racing, he's sharing that with Phil Hill. Not the Phil Hill, of course, and it's KTM 1-2, because second place now on the timesheets is another True Racing car, and it's Patrick Niederhauser, a driver who is just having the most sensational season. Pretty much every time he gets to the car, he seems to come home with a podium result. And in fact, Niederhauser putting in another quick lap. He's 0.1 of a second down on Mad Siljahaug. So it's KTM's first and second. And Stefan Lemeret in the number 9, CMR Alpine, is 3rd overall. Both getting all of those getting ahead of Ewan Mackay's BMW and Benjamin Lassen's McLaren. Top Audi, 7th place at the moment. Cedric Freiberghaus for Phoenix Racing. So Sembol Bolokbazi was 7th when we last at the timing screen, now down to 11th as more and more drivers put in quicker times. And an improvement on time, but not in terms of position. So he stays down in 11th place there. Little Alpines, very, very tidy looking cars. Eric Mouet, who's been having a really good season with his teammate David Loger, also running for the CMR Alpine squad, really going along very, very well in the AM class. Placing 2nd in that. They've got 2 class wins, and unfortunately Francesco Pastorelli, we've seen him once, we've seen him twice, and the second bit is not as good because he's still off the circuit, so he's had a slight biff with the barriers, and now the car is going nowhere. So Francesco Pastorelli, 21st of the 28 runners who set flying laps, and he'll tumble down the order because others are getting through their second flying lap and picking up the pace. But the 69 big V8 Camaro parked at the side of the circuit and going for an inspection. Is he suggesting there might have been a puncture, something remiss? So maybe he just drove off, but for the tall Dutchman, not what he wants to be doing in the 20-minute qualifying session. This is a car that's been going very well. 2nd in the championship. Max Kobold sharing with Jan Kizil. There you can see, in fact, also the car that's setting the initial pace. McLaren in the background with Benjamin Lassen on board, but it's Max Kobold. Mercedes AMGs, very, very popular indeed. This is a car that as soon as it was launched, it was clear that it had a really, really nice balance, something that gives drivers confidence, which particularly when drivers are new to GT racing, very, very worthwhile indeed. But so it's just, cruising in. Yeah, in fact, we must have, just looking, all the cars have slowed, so it's in a full course yellow. Yes, there's the yellow bar under the light, so the timing bar at the top of the screen. So just remember, Mad Siljahaug, top from Patrick Niederhauser. They're KTM's in the pit lane already, but the clock will continue to count down under full course yellow. So it looks as though whatever is remiss, it's because that V8 Racing Camaro's at the side of the circuit. It looks as though it's going to be moved, but it doesn't matter. Just what you don't want in your race suit on a bakingly hot day is to have to get a car that doesn't want to go anywhere to go somewhere. So there are times at the moment. The number 24 KTM leading the way. Mad Siljahaug, the 16 KTM in 2nd place. Patrick Niederhauser at 3rd place. Stefan Lemeret, 1 full second back. So those 2 KTMs well clear. They did them on their first flying lap, those times. And for a lot of the others, they had a cautious first flying lap and were building up to the second one. And unfortunately, this full course yellow has caught them out. Car 111, topping the way in the Pro-Am class, and that's Marius Zug, and that's RN Vision STS BMW, and leading the way in the AM class is Dominic Olbert, who put in that fantastic time in the Rezoon More Than Racing KTM Crossbow, so going particularly well. See quite a spread of times. I really feel it would have tightened up an awful lot, but hopefully that Camaro will be out of the way soon and the drivers out there can really start to wind it up. And as I say that, yellow turns green, so effectively 8 minutes for their qualifying session. Certainly means you have to get that lap in, really nail it. How many risks you taken? So many times at MISANO you'll see drivers are spinning out of that final corner. Used to have many Ginettas in GT4 racing, not so many now, so good chance to see the NM racing team, Carl-Luc Ibanez and Jorge Catalan. Showing that number 15 entry from the NM racing team. Always with GT4, this spread of manufacturers. Mercedes, as I said, very popular. McLaren's gaining many friends with the 570S. You can see the metallic blue one in the background. That's the Las Maras by Equipe Vechor entry. And at the wheel at the moment should be Gabriella. Looking for a good result on home ground. Giovanelli. But he's not at the sharp end of the field at the moment. Down in 18th, so sort of middle order. Started the session with 35 cars, so that really is top of the second half of the field at the moment. The drivers at the top of the field, those two KTMs in this first of two qualifying sessions for the GT4 European Series, sitting there very comfortably. They're a tenth of a second apart, but they have almost an entire second. Well, in fact, they do have an entire second back to the runner in third place, Stéphane Lemeray. The number 9 CMR Alpine. Someone has just been off the circuit. It was presumably that Mercedes ahead of the yellow-nosed Mercedes. So face full of dust. It was Jan Reinig. We rode on board with him in the 777 Schrader Motorsport Mercedes. He was the one, I think, who kicked up the dust. No damage done though, just something to keep Alessio Giovanelli on his toes. So as you can see, he's improved on his first sector time. Alessandro Giovanelli, second sector time, not so good. Backed off, probably because of all that dust being kicked up into his face. But will have time of plenty. Still 5 minutes remaining in this session to really get to nail a lap. But he's already moved on to the tail of that little Alpine. You want clear track, but it's never a guarantee. With this many cars on a 4.226 kilometre circuit, 16 turns around its length. So very seldom do you get a clear run of the corners you're looking for. So riding on board, I presume this is Jan Reinig. He has the camera car out of turn 10, running wide, 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 just a little bit too wide. Kick it, that's in dipping those left-hand wheels into the gravel. Furious with himself or other circumstances. He's slightly distracted by the Alpine up ahead of him, but it's going quite slowly. So 5 minutes on the board. Where we want to look at the moment, we want to find that number 9 CMR Alpine, because that's set its fastest first sector of the lap. It's the car that's in third place overall, that number 9 CMR Alpine. That will be on the move. It's still the 24 Mad Silliahau pedalled KTM, still in the pit, still the fastest. Talking of the number 11 McLaren, and there it is. Lisette Brahms sharing with Gabriella. And good to see Lisette back in harness, racing again. Wasn't altogether well last year, had some health issues, but bounced back as only someone who's bubbly and determined and vivacious as Lisette can do. Four of the top 5 runners in the pits. I don't suppose they're going to risk too much, but the one in the middle of that pack, the one in third place overall, Stéphane Lemeray, out on the circuit. He improved in his first sector, did not in his second. Waiting to see if he'll find any change, but he really needs to find a whole second if he wants pole position. Lisette Brahms coming out of the final corner onto that very short start-finish straight. And Lisette down in 31st position. Only 32 drivers have set flying laps. And stays where she is in 31st position, in fact a second off the pace. Here's Stéphane Lemeray, CMR. Very, very strong driver pairing with Pierre-Alexandre Jean, the Curial French ace. And I think maybe this time around doesn't seem to have traffic in front of him, so this could be the opportunity. But look at the clock, just over 3 minutes remaining. It's going to be busy. People who are making moves. We saw early in the session the Borusan Automotive BMW, that was outside the top 10. It's now in the top 10. Then Bolokbazi up into 9th position overall. If he'd found a tiny fraction more, he'd have gained another position or two. Very tight, effectively, from Max Cobalt in the number 4 Mercedes for Lippert Motorsport in 6th place down to 10th. Absolutely nothing in it. How's this lap for Lemeray? No improvement in the first sector, but he's got a clear run. His last lap was compromised in sector 2 of the 3 sectors. Now he's got no compromise. But has he backed off? He's backed off. Yes, that foreshortening head-on shot there from the outside, looking up the straight at turns 12 towards 11. You see he's backed off down to the 13-14 combination, the far end of the circuit, right packed in close to the grandstands there. But cruising in, maybe he's just content that that's enough. 3rd place, hoping he's not going to be challenged, but almost all of the other drivers in the top 10 are parked in the pit lane. Jan Reinig is not in the top 10, he's down in 19th position. Is he improving on this lap? No, he is not. Conditions clearly very, very tricky, and I'm sure in these temperatures, and let's just reiterate, it's probably close on 40 degrees outside. Now, it's fine for me to say that from my air-conditioned commentary box, but it really is hot out there, and we know what that does to tyre life and tyre usage. So it looks as though the Schrader Motorsport cars, they're actually just cruising back. I can't see any time improvements on my timing screen. A few down towards the tail of the field. Paolo Maloney on home ground, twitching away at the wheel for Jan Reinig. So just to reiterate, before the end of qualifying, a minute or more to go, we had the interruption when the V8 Racing Chevrolet had to be recovered from the circuit. But already by that point, 2 KTM drivers with their first flying laps, Mads Siljehaug and Patrick Niederhauser, moved ahead of the rest at the top of the charts. And they're sitting there with almost a second advantage over the best of the rest. So they really grasped their opportunity at the first time of asking. So the majority of drivers actually deciding to park up early. Paolo Maloney waiting for him to complete his lap. He does not improve his time. And I thought the Italian driver on home ground may move up the charts. We do have a mover. We do have a mover who suddenly moved up into 4th place, almost unnoticed. Bullet Racing, Romain Monti, driver with a considerable amount of racing experience, has accelerated himself up to 4th place. French racer. Doing a very, very tidy job. Number 66, that's Bullet Racing. This year running 2 Mercedes. He's in the silver class pairing with Alex Lambert. So there's Romain, and he's slower than Stéphane Lemeray's Alpine, but faster than Ewan Mackay's BMW, Romain, and he's going faster still on this lap. I don't know how good his middle sector was. It wasn't an improvement, but a huge improvement in the first sector of the lap, with almost the checkered flag out and almost everybody else parked in the pits. Romain goes through. Does he improve yet more? Just waiting for that time to be issued. Well, he does. 1 minute 43.852. Improved his time, but not his position. But it's first blood to Mads Siljehaug. Nobody else is going to topple him. But clever tactics there from Romain Monti and the Bullet Racing crew. Dave Price, so many years of experience at the helm, and probably decided when he noticed the other cars, or suggested the other cars might come in because they didn't want to tire their tyres out, decided clear track, particularly at MISANO, vital to have. And in fact, on the final lap, the other car from Bullet Racing, number 33, Stephen Patrick, that also improved its lap time, and that one moved up to 21st. So 4th and 21st, a good return there of a very, very tricky qualifying session. Last car that might improve would be Paolo Maloney, car number 71. He's in 1 position ahead of Stephen Patrick. Improves his time, but does not go any further up the charts. So very, very close to his best in the great-looking BMW, very crisp livery on that W&D racing team. So many years together, Drisoldi and Maloney. Italian drivers enjoying their racing on home ground. There it is in Taser sponsorship. looks good in bright weather and dark conditions as well, with that luminous orangey red on the white and blue background. So KTM's first and second, and Alpine in third. Mercedes in fourth, BMW in fifth, and a McLaren in sixth. There's the variety you love, and the best of the Audis in ninth place. So plenty of manufacturer involvement, plenty of manufacturers right in the mix here at MISANO. But the twists and turns, year in, year out, you get KTMs going very, very well here, better than they do at some more flowing circuits. Clearly the nimbleness of the KTM crossbow is something that's very much enjoyed here at MISANO. So we'll have a 10-minute break between the end of when the checkered flag came out and the start of qualifying session number 2. So for some drivers who are, for every driver here, it's a chance to swap over to their teammate, tell them what the conditions are like. They're probably coming in and say, you are really going to have to be very careful with your tyres. It's very, very hot here, probably around 40 degrees, and track temperature in full sunshine since dawn today means that it's going to be, well, wait to see what the next figure is. But yesterday we saw some very lofty track temperatures in the mid to high 40s, not what you expect in Europe. Clearly this massive heat wave coming through that's blown up from Africa is going to be causing a few headaches, both in and out of the cockpit. So a stop-start session there for the crews, and makes it very, very difficult indeed for all of them to guess the conditions, guess the situation. So the cars lined up again, drivers being changed over. So those from the cockpit getting out hot, looking for a cool drink. Those in the cockpit now just thinking of a cool drink, trying to stay cool, stay focused, think about how they're going to set their qualifying laps. But let's have a look. 2 KTMs at the top, and as you can see, almost the best part of a full second clear of the rest. Mads Silja Haug from Patrick Niederhauser setting those times. Then Stefan Lemeray third in the Alpine. Romain Monti fourth in the Mercedes right at the end, tipping Ewan Mackay down to fifth in his BMW. And Benjamin Lecen, championship leader, his McLaren down into sixth. But those first 2 in this stop-start qualifying session did masterful laps and really didn't have to do the work thereafter. They came into the pits, stayed in the pits, while their rivals saw what they could do. But only Romain Monti, and then right at the end, came charging through. Everybody else had set their times early on. Top car in the Pro-Am class, Marius Zug in his RN Vision STS. BMW down in 8th position overall. Top in the AM class, Dominic Olbert in his KTM. That's car number 99 from More Than Racing. He shares that with Onda Erdem. So quite a few Turkish drivers in the field this weekend, which shows just the change, the international spread of motor racing in recent years. 2 cars did not start there. The number 19 Pro Sports Performance Aston Martin, Akil Rabindra and David Griesner didn't get to go out and play, and neither one of the Academy Motorsports, Academy Racing Aston Martins also remained pit side. That was the Wilmore Matthew Cowley car. So taking a look back at the highlights, it was just building up for Francesco Pastorelli in the Chevrolet, but then suddenly it was building down and something remiss under the car. He stopped, had it checked out, the marshals took a look at it as well, and that brought out full course yellow, and that meant that the 20-minute qualifying session had been really, really compressed. And it meant drivers had to take a bigger risk to try and set their quick time, some pushing a little too hard. That was Jan Reinig going out over the curbs on the exit of turn 10, ruining his lap, but a twitchy moment or two for the little Alpines. That was the Gregoire de Mustier Alain Fete car. A driver really making moves towards the end of the session was Romain Monti, and he suddenly went from nowhere up to fourth. But that first session belonged to the KTMs. Would it in session number 2? That's where we find out how strong the driver lineups. But if we have an uninterrupted 20-minute session, who knows? It's not anyway guaranteed they will be at the top of the time charts again. But I must say the KTMs really, really seem to like the nature of the MISANO circuit. Good breeze down the pit lane, very, very welcome indeed. It's extremely hot. It's easy to say things are hot, but this is a unparalleled heat plume coming up from North Africa. So 10 minutes is the gap between checkered flag being shown and green light at end of pit lane, and the cars, if there is any shade, it was in the pit lane, you can see it's now dwindling. Any of the cars parked in that echelon formation in front of the garages. They are now sitting in full sunshine, and that really will make those cockpits pretty uncomfortable before the drivers take their GT4 runners out to go and see who's going to take pole. For the second of the two races, race 1 here is kicking off this afternoon after 4 o'clock. Let me just see what the time is. GT4 European Series, 4:35. Rolling start, 1 hour race. Going to be hot, going to be tight, going to be fast, going to be furious. The second race tomorrow. MISANO, often a warm place on the eastern coast, the Adriatic coast of Italy, but now in unusually hot conditions. Fortunately, at night it does seem to drop away. I didn't know when we arrived yesterday if it was going to be one of those absolutely scorching nights. It was hot, but not unbearable. But for the crews down in the pit lane, it's a very, very hot place to be. And where they park their cars under the awning, out in the paddock, you might be out of the sun, but you're not out of the temperature. It can be very, very hot for the team. So a tiring weekend and a full day of racing. We don't finish until 11 o'clock tonight. So we have the different feeling of for many, of racing in the dark, which always adds quite a twist to the makeup of the event. Just to point out who's doing well in the championship. Before that first session, I pointed out Benjamin Lessen and Daniel Mackay leading overall by 11 points. Quite a good lead, 91 points to 80. Their Equipe Vaucheur McLaren ahead of Jan Kissel and Max Cobalt in their Lippert Motorsport Mercedes. But they have 2 wins. The second place crew, Kissel and Cobalt, 1 win. Another team with 2 wins, a team on the move, the team that took the 2 wins last time out. Simon Knapp and the American racer Alec Udell, MDM Motorsport. There are the championship points on the screen, and you can see Knapp and Udell, those 2 wins propelled them up to 3rd place, just moving ahead of Reinhard Koffler and Patrick Niederhauser in their KTM. And we saw Patrick just delivering that 2nd quickest time, so we could have a recalibration of the championship. In fact, I'm sure it's absolutely guaranteed. But interesting in this championship, as I pointed out, Monza, Brands Hatch, Paul Ricard, 3 totally different sorts of circuits, and now yet another one, MISANO. So you've got to be good right across the board to get to the top end in the GT4 European Series. A championship that has doubled its field in recent years. And we were starting here with, I think, 35 cars. We had 2 non-starters in that first session. Well, let's see if it's a problem that can be fixed for those, and they'll be out in qualifying session number 2. In the Pro-Am Cup, Marcus Pavorus and Lucy Treffs, top of the charts for them. They're racing a Lippert Motorsport Mercedes. Second place, Zug and Piana. And Zug went very well in first qualifying today. They are in a BMW, their RN Vision STS. Alain Ferté, there's a driver still racing as 60 years have come and gone. Absolute star in Formula 2 back in the early 1980s. But just loves his racing so much. GT4 has been his rebirth. And he's 3rd in the championship in Pro-Am, sharing with Grégoire de Moustier, 3rd manufacturer at the top end of the field. It's Mercedes from BMW, and they're in the Regalia competition Alpine. Let's take a look at the AM Cup, and it's Street Art Racing, long-time Aston Martin racing team, Clement Seiler and Pascal Bachmann, and then David Logier, Eric Mouet, they're 2nd in the CMR Alpine, and 3rd is, at the moment, Lisette Brahms. There we are. We saw her out on the track earlier in her metallic blue Las Maras Racing McLaren. So the 3 classes, 2 qualifying sessions. We've had qualifying session number 1, qualifying session number 2 about to begin. 20 minutes. It's going to start in about 2 seconds time. Green light at pit exit, waiting for the cars to go out. 20 minutes, it's already starting counting down towards 0, towards the checkered flag for this, the 2nd qualifying session of the GT4 European Series here at MISANO. It's hot. It's going to be very tight. We're going to have runners exceeding track limits, of that you can be sure. But who's going to get it right? Is it going to be the KTMs at the top? Track temperature 32.9. That's interesting. I think what's happened, this breeze has picked up a little bit, maybe slightly cooled it, but I thought it was going to keep travelling north of 40. Every degree that can come off the air temperature, but particularly off the track temperature, will really, really help the drivers. Early part of the lap, tight right, tight left, slightly wider right, very, very tricky first corner complex. This is the view as the cars run down through what we call turn 7. In fact, we don't call it. It's a very slight kink. You can see the shadow on the kink. And that's the little kink as they go down to the hairpin at turn 8, a corner that has plenty of runoff area, and it's used on a frequent basis. go in too late, obviously you go on to beyond. And beyond the painted tarmac, very beautifully painted tarmac, is gravel, which will contain the cars, but not help your qualifying lap. First few cars out, just trying to get the right sort of temperature into their tyres. They're the two MDM Motorsport BMWs. Simon Knapp, Alec Udell share number 25. They're going, as I pointed out just moments ago, incredibly well. 2 wins in the last 2 races. They were triumphant on 2 occasions at Paul Ricard. And sister car number 26, Koen Burgarts and Mark van der Eur. It might just be me, but I would get my drivers a little further apart if they're going on a qualifying lap. You don't want one to have a moment and trip up the second, so as they start their flying lap, any moment now they need to put a bit of space between them, I would suggest. Out of the 16th corner, all contained on the circuit. When they set the flying laps, you'll see them all going very wide over the curbing there. If anyone gets all 4 wheels over the exit of the final corner, over the white line, then it's more than likely their time will be disqualified. We saw a couple of times being removed in qualifying session number 1. Let's hope we don't in 2, but I feel as night follows day and day follows night that we are invariably going to see people out beyond the circuit. In fact, both of them slightly wide of the painted lines in the early part of this, their first flying lap. Alec Udell been doing great things in the World Challenge Series in the States, really front runner in recent years, champion back in 2016 in the GTC class. But coming over to Europe, he's really had a brilliant start to the season with Dutch racer Simon Knapp. Talking of Simon Knapp, Dutch BMW racer, never ever counts out Ricardo van der Ende. Ecris Motorsport, he's going to be setting some quick times as well in his Ecris Motorsport BMW, the Ecris M4. Going to be at the top. It's in fact Ricardo van der Ende looks like he's setting a very good time around this lap, waiting for that first flying lap to be put on the board. Let's hope they get more than a couple in before we have any stoppages. In fact, let's hope for no stoppages whatsoever. Look 2 for Pierre-Alexandre Jean, bound to be going well in the number 9 Alpine. Still waiting for that first flying lap to come on the board. Looks so Alec Udell's done a really good first sector. It's always slightly misleading at this point because they're all just working on their first flying lap. When a purple time on your screen, or pinky purple time is on your screen, that's fastest of anybody in that particular sector. And Alec Udell has that boast right here, right now, but I think these times will change more. Well, that's a really good first flying lap on the board, topped by a quarter of a second from Daniel Mackay in the number 14, Nicky Verschoor McLaren. Mark van der Eur and the sister BMW goes into 3rd place, and Nikolai Moller-Madsen, Phoenix Racing Audi, there he is, number 1 on screen, goes into 4th. McLaren does seem very, very good in the very fast middle sector of the 3, including that long back straight, because the time Daniel Mackay set in that sector, fastest of anyone by some margin. Alec Udell, Daniel Mackay, Mark van der Eur, BMW, McLaren BMW, for 4th place in the hands of Dominic Schrammel and the Schrader Motorsport Mercedes. 5th place, well, that's changed because David Logier has gone into 3rd place in his Alpine. David Logier sharing with Eric Mouet. They're in the AM class, so that's a sensational lap from them. Nikolai Moller-Madsen this early part of the lap in the number 1 Phoenix Audi. Look at that, nearly 4/10 of a second quicker than anybody managed in Sector 1 on their first flying laps. Really, really picking up the pace, but he's got himself into traffic, but luckily for him, it's one of the MDM Motorsport BMWs, and we know how quick they are. They were second, they were 1st and 3rd. And now Ricardo van der Ende goes to the top of the charts. I said look out for him, the Ecris Motorsport, the number 8 BMW M4. How good is the middle sector for Nikolai Moller-Madsen? Well, it's an improvement on his previous best by some margin, but not overall best. Julian Darras is going well, Street Art Racing in his Aston Martin Vantage at some point around the lap. But it's van der Ende from Alec Udell, BMW from BMW. Any other improvements? Well, Udell did improve his time with his second flying lap, but he's 5.546 of a second down on Ricardo van der Ende. The number 1 Audi at the moment, 3rd fastest. He's 0.8 of a second down. The new body shape Vantage Great looking car, much sharper than the old one. Number 17 at the moment in the hands of Pascal Bachmann. Looked good early in the lap. Julian Duras in the sister car has gone into 5th place. Number 17, in fact, not right at the sharp end of the field moment. It's down in 16th place overall. KTM pulling to the side of the circuit. That's not what the doctor ordered. Looks like the number 16 Reinhard Koffler car. Don't forget that was second quickest in qualifying session number 1 in the hands of Patrick Niederhauser, but just saw it slinking to the side of the circuit. Reinhard Koffler has been a mega star, particularly here at MISANO in recent years. I reckon he's probably been about the most successful driver, along with Patrick Niederhauser in KTM crossbows over the years. Can't see anything untoward. Up goes that unusual pivoting lid so the driver can get out. But for the Austrian, yes, it's cooler out of the car, but he was wanting to set some good times. He doesn't have a flying lap on the board. I thought we'd see the gloves being thrown into the cockpit there, you know, that image of driver disgust. But right now, just frustration for Reinhard. But what that does guarantee is a comeback drive through the field. Yeah, a little bit of gesticulation. And while we were just looking at that, Gabriella Piana in the number 111, which is the RN Vision STS Pro-Am class BMW, up into second place overall. Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the little Alpine is now 3rd. So it's BMW, which is Ricardo van der Ende from Gabriella Piana. Pierre-Alexandre Jean in 3rd place overall. Alec Udell 4th in his BMW. And Nikolai Moller-Madsen did string that good lap together to go into 5th place. Spinner out of the final corner. Let me turn my head to take a look out the commentary box window. Celestar Racing Team is in the AM class. It's their AM Mercedes, number 32. Jean-Luc Beheerds and Johan Vannerum. But he manages to get it pointing the right way and get going all over again. And now we have a new name at the top of the charts. We're looking at him there, Jan Kissel. Really flying in the championship this year, 2nd overall, showing with Max Cobalt, puts in a time that's 0.2 of a second quicker than Ricardo van der Ende's best. It's Dutch drivers very much at the fore at the moment. Jan Kissel, 1 minute 43.068 of a second. No improvement in the first sector. That probably was his real flying lap in that number 4 Mercedes. Annoyingly for him, he suddenly seems to have loads of space, but his first sector of the lap was not good, but still a 001 flashing on the windscreen in those green lights, fastest of all. So Mercedes suddenly thought, hey, BMW's having a bit too much fun, and have moved to the top of the charts in the form of number 4 of Leipert Motorsport of Jan Kissel. So his teammate, we're very pleased with that. Max Cobalt, 2nd in the championship. 1 win to their name, but showing form here that suggests another may not be too far away. They won the 2nd race at Brands Hatch. Yeah, this lap not going to be strung together as an absolutely brilliant one. 10 minutes and 10.5 minutes remaining in the session. A few teams seeming to be telling their drivers to back off a little bit. Out over the curbs all over again, but a beautifully controlled run there from Jan Kissel. Number 4 is suddenly, oh yeah, just trying to, well, he was close to his best. 43.266, but Ricardo van der Ende tried to respond, came into the pits, but his difference is only 0.018 of a second, 18 thousandths of a second, the gap between 1st and 2nd. Pierre-Alexandre Jean has slid back to 4th place. How's he going on this lap in that little Alpine? No improvement in Sector 1, no improvement in Sector 2. So a lot of the drivers are finding a sweet spot, but they can't keep finding it. Again, conditions not favourable. Car on the move, number 61, Academy Motorsports. Aston Martin, it's the sort of silver one with the yellow flashes on the body, shared with Micah Stanley. Micah did a very good job, and he's moved up to 7th place. First person to improve in the top end for a while. Nikolai Moller-Madsen improved last time around, but he's now slid back to 6th with those late improvements. And suddenly we have the car that was setting the pace, set the fastest first sector of anybody, and has pulled to the side of the circuit. Jan Kissel from, Jonathan Cecotto in the sister car. car 31. In fact, that's the Salazar Racing team. We saw that one driven, sorry, I got my yellow Mercedes confused. Seen from the front on, Jonathan Cecotto joining Alessandro Giovanelli this weekend. And he's pulled to the side of the circuit. There's the 61 car I was talking of a short while ago. Tom Wood, been setting some good times in that. How's he going on this lap? He is not improving. In fact, he's backed off. It's the curse of looking at a car. And in fact, have we got full course yellow? Yes, we've got any second now. Yeah, the bar at the top of the screen goes full yellow. So we've got to wait while the number 31 Mercedes, one of the Salazar Racing Team cars, is removed from the side of the circuit. Jonathan Cecotto came on board for this weekend. In fact, he's competing in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo race as well. So second generation racer will be very busy indeed. Quite a few of the runners deciding to dive into pit lane while the Mercedes is recovered. How many will come back out? And while all that was happening, we suddenly had a mover, car number 15, NM Racing Team Ginetta, just set the fastest middle sector of anyone, and out came the full course yellow, but had just moved up at the end of the previous lap to third overall, so slightly unsighted. We had the Mercedes, which we saw take to the top of the charts, Jan Kissel for Leipzig Motorsport. We saw Ricardo van der Ende got very close, 18 one-thousandths of a second down. Then when we weren't looking, the Spanish pairing, or the one at the moment at the wheel, Luc Ibanez, third fastest for NM Racing Team, so really good run. Top three cars covered by just under 0.3 of a second. And in fact, if you want to know how many cars are covered by the first second, it's the top 10, down to Nicholas Scholl in the number 22 Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. And we're green again, sudden upbeat engine notes. And they've got to wind it up all over again. So is that pace going to continue to come from Luc Ibanez in the little Ginetta, number 15? There it is. Third fastest, 6 and a bit minutes remaining in this session. Not too many cars in the pit, so it's busy out there. 30 cars or so out on the circuit. Just remember, top 10 covered by a second, so it's close. It's very tight indeed. Just 18 thousandths of a second between Ricardo van der Ende, who's chasing, and Jan Kissel, who's put his car to the top of the charts. But can this driver, Luc Ibanez, make his mark? He's already done a really, really good run to third place. Will he stay? So for all these drivers, they're having to unwind or wind it back up again. Alec Udell, the number 25 BMW, we saw him right at the top of the charts, the American racer who's making such a splash in Europe. He's fallen to 6th place, but he's out on the circuit. Has he got traffic in front of him? There is the question. Luc Ibanez, well, he's done it again. He was the fastest driver through Sector 1 just before the full course yellow. Now fastest in Sector 1. Now the cars have been released all over again. Not too much traffic ahead of him as he goes down into the hairpin at turn 8. He's got, yes, probably a car about 3 seconds up the track. That should be fine. That should not be obstructing him. And amazing, this is completely disproportionate until the second of the last race, the last 2 races at Paul Ricard. They never finished in the top 10. Took a 7th place there, Luc Ibanez. He's got a new teammate this weekend. But Luc really getting to grips with the car. How's his middle sector? Just waiting for completion of sector number 2. Time on the board, no improvement. He's up by, he's cost himself a 10th of a second, but he gained 0.3 in the first sector. So if he takes that, it could put him within an absolute whisker of toppling Jan Kissel and Ricardo van der Ende, of getting up onto that front row. You can see the tail being pushed very, very hard indeed on that Ginetta. Hot, tricky conditions for the drivers coming towards the end of the lap. Braking now for the final corner, trying to get the balance out over the curbs and beyond. Oh, well, that was in another country. That was a let's not back off, let's not ruin the lap. What does it do to his time? Still waiting for his time to be put on the board. It's now on the board, no improvement. He's down by a 10th of a second overall, but it wasn't for want of trying. Jan Kissel, we talked of him, he's still at the top of the pile in his Leipzig Motorsport Mercedes. He's done his best second sector. We need to see where that big yellow and white Mercedes is, but it looks large with that enormously long snout on it. Other types of people who are going fast. Gabriella Piena's moved up into 3rd place. He's vaulted over Luc Ibanez. So it's Mercedes from BMW with the Ginetta slipping back to 4th. Or we can have movers from McLaren because the best McLaren is way down the charts. Daniel Mackay is down, well, in fact, he just moved another position down. He's in 13th position, so time's really starting to change. Andy Merrick making a bit of a charge in the Bullet Racing Mercedes, but we're looking to see where the next quick time is coming from. This Chevrolet was parked up in session number 1. Francesco Pastorelli had the problem with the car. Now in the hands of Duncan Houseman, waiting to see the bow tie move its way up the charts. Car number 69. V8 Racing. Duncan's been handling it for years and handling it with considerable aplomb. How good was the lap for Jan Kissel? We saw an improvement, but not overall. At the end of the lap, he lost time. And in fact, some of his rivals have reported to the pits. They've decided they have done their best. Nikolai Moller-Madsen continues to... well, in fact, he's just come into the pits as well. Most of the improvements are now just outside the top 10. What are we going to get from Duncan Houseman? No flying lap on the board as yet. 3 minutes remaining. Is he going to be the charger who comes from nowhere? Certainly driving with a lot of vim, a lot of vigour coming through the final sequence of corners. That was turn 15 up to turn 16, the final corner, out over the curbing and beyond. He's not on the timing charts. He's outside the top. Only 30 runners a set of flying lap. His lap is about to be issued. Just waiting for the clock to tick over. Timing screen. And third place overall, that's how you do it. Years of experience, years of excellence behind the wheel for the Houseman brothers, but Duncan today doing a really, really good job. Whatever the problem was for V8 Racing, it was fixed, and fixed very quickly. Don't forget the car had to be towed in after stopping in session 1. They only had a 10-minute turnaround, so great job from the Dutch racers there. It's Mercedes from BMW, from Chevrolet, from BMW again, Ginetta, Alpena, so much variety. Gabriella moved up to 3rd, back down to 4th with that great lap from Duncan Houseman, who is on the move, hunting up and down the timing screens. Yeah, Duncan was the last really quick time, that one that put him into 3rd place overall. And certainly the body language for Gabriella is cruising, not charging. Into the final 2 minutes. Best of the Porsches really some way down the chart, waiting for one to slot in a really good time. And Nicolas Scholl, very handy driver, he is top Porsche, he's 15th overall, and he's not improving around this lap, so he's obviously decided enough is enough. And there he is, driving out of turn 15 on the wrong side of the barriers, or the right side if you're going to the pit lane. Haven't seen too much of the other Leipert Motorsport Mercedes at the sharp end of the field. This is the Pro-Am class. Luki Treffs and Marcus Paverud leading the Pro-Am class overall. 11th place and improving. One of the rare improvements at the moment. Marcus Paverud. This lap is better than anything that's gone before. Duncan Houseman completes another lap. Do we have an improvement? Again, just waiting for those times to come up, but different tactics with a lot of the rivals. Bullet Racing continue to have their drivers out on the circuit late in the session. Is there any improvement from Andy Merrick? In fact, no, he's lost position, lost time. He's fallen down to 16th place overall. Marcus Paverud, very, very bright yellow man filter race livery for him. 11th at the moment. Are we getting an improvement? Yes, in Sector 1, not really Sector 2. In fact, he lost half a second in Sector 2. He's not going to get back in the final session, so he'll be outside the top 10 and stay out there behind them. I think that might be Stephen Merrick in the Bullet Racing car he shares with Stephen Patrick, but no improvement for him. So the clock almost counted down to the end of 20 minutes. And it looks as though Jan Kissel, now just reported to the pits, has done all he needs to do to take the pole position from Ricardo van der Ende. And again, just looking for late movers on the time charts. Alex Lamberts. This is the car that Romain Monti took from nowhere to very much the sharp end of the field for Bullet Racing. So I think it was 4th place overall in qualifying. The checkered flag is out. Last few runners racing towards the finish. And for Alex Lamberts, 18th position at the moment. Don't know if we're going to see any improvements, possibly a small one. Let's have a look, waiting for that time to be issued on the board. Just out a second down the pace. He moves up 2 positions, so he just moves ahead of the sister car, in fact. So Bullet Racing 16th and 17th, but we think they're probably in for quite a good race meeting. But Jan Kissel, he was the driver who put the time in the session, the time that really, really counted. He takes pole position for the race. Just all eyes at the moment on that number 2 Mercedes, Marcus Paverud, but it's not going to be a lap improvement. First sector, no improvement. Second sector, no improvement. Checkered flag is out, so time to report back to the pit lane, one feels. suddenly this is the time the drivers actually want to be on the circuit, going for a flying lap. Half the field in the pit lane. There we are, Marcus Pavru peeling off out of turn 15 into pit entrance. Last few cars have got half a lap to complete and the session will be over. But it was a session we saw the BMWs working their way towards the sharp end. They seemed to have all the answers, but then other manufacturers got in the mix. We had the Mercedes of Jan Kissel going to the top. We had Duncan Houseman coming from nowhere in his Chevrolet getting in the mix. And don't forget too, Luke Ibanez, really good little run in the Ginetta. Got up to third place, eventually fell back to fifth place overall, but he's under 0.3 of a second down on that pole position. So very, very tight at the top. And we talked about drivers running too wide out of the final corner. We just watched car number 66 go over the curbing a little bit too much, and having just moved up ahead of the teammate, Alex Lamberts has now had 2 places. He's fallen 2 places. That lap time was removed from him for exceeding track limits. So the officials looking at all occasions to see if drivers are trying to steal an advantage. And the number 66 car, there it is, cruising back in, being punished, but only the loss of 2 positions, so nothing too disastrous. So there it is, Jan Kissel, that really good lap for pole position. Top of the table for Alpena Motorsport. BMW best of the rest. Ricardo van der Ende doing a job. Very strong pairing with Ewan Mackay, so that's what you want. Francesco Pastorelli didn't do this session. He was the one in session 1. It was Duncan Houseman who came from nowhere to move just 0.2 of a second away from pole position in that V8 Racing Chevrolet. Then Gabriella Piana going great guns in the number 111 BMW, sharing with Marius. So Luc Ibanez getting a Ginetta up into 5th place overall. And Stéphane Lemeray, Pierre-Alexandre Jean, best of the Alpine runners. And again, in these 2 driver races, it's about having a strong pairing as much as having the quickest driver. So we will see how they fare in the race, but they always seem to be going very well indeed. So, as you can see, more than 30 cars came out to play, 31 set flying laps, and one of the very quickest, potentially, don't forget the number 16 KTM, Reinhard Koffler, car stopped before he could complete a flying lap, pulled quietly to the side of the circuit. So one of the very quickest drivers will be starting right down at the tail of the field. There you can see it, the true racing entry. Pro Sport Performance, I think that number 19 car didn't start session 1, or the number 62 Aston Martin, that didn't either. So 2 Aston Martins haven't gone out to play today. So maybe we have just, I say just, 33 runners. Excellent field of cars for the GT4 European Series. And looking back at the highlights, the drivers knew it was hot in the cockpit, and it was even hotter for the KTM driver because the car stopped working for Reinhard Koffler. Possible favourite, spinners out of the final corner. It's the favourite place to spin. Had Lisette Brands and Gabby Ulgi in there. McLaren. Mercedes riding out around this tight, twisty circuit, but it was a Mercedes that went to the front. It was this one, Jan Kissel, Alpena Motorsport, doing a really, really good job. At the end, though, how big was his advantage? Just 18 thousandths of a second over Ricardo van der Ende. Super, super tight at the top. Duncan Houseman has shown that he's got plenty of pace to carry into the race. Let's see, and the race this afternoon is going to be hot, it's going to be tight, and it's going to be very competitive indeed.